The larger chunks of debris that fell from the previous realm were replaced by something that, to Arrow, confirmed he was dreaming. He was able to make out what looked like multiple large objects, each moving with their own distinct patterns. The illumination acted as a beacon, calling the divine creatures, lesser gods, and their progeny to the newly formed lesser realm. He quickly learned that the celestial tortoise's size was not unusual, but rather the standard. The first to make its way past Arrow was the divine serpent in all its glory. With a fierce horned face, razor sharp teeth, and a crown of scale like feathers, the divine serpent was terrifying. The crown of scale like feathers formed into a jagged spine down its back. Its skin was translucent, and the churning bones underneath visible as it slithered by. Encircling the celestial serpent was its progeny, hundreds of serpents varying in all shapes, colors, and sizes. Next followed the celestial ape in all its glory, with large, powerful hands and feet protruding from a magnificent mane of silver and white hair. The great ape still managed to shake the surroundings with each step, even though in space. The celestial ape had a makeshift harness strapped around its barreled chest. It was attached to a blue, gem like planet by a thin black cord. It shined behind him like it was his most prized possession. The blue gem like planet must have been special as the celestial ape glared at Arrow as it stomped past. Soaring out in front of the stampeding bestiary appeared the celestial bird in all its glory. The greatest of the feathered beasts, the massive four winged bird was followed by many other lesser gods sharing its avian relation. Arrow saw a flock of phoenix and even a gaggle of griffins he recognized from stories told in the resupply market. Frolicking in tow came the playful celestial tiger in all its glory, leading its progeny who pawed and stalked the birds in front of them. Streaks of silver and blue covered the divine feline as its long, shimmering whiskers sparkled with starlight. Next, the celestial stallion galloped through the sky in all its glory. The oil scaled horse with black wings led its herd. The more mythical species with wings followed closely as the ones who ruled the land galloped in tow. The herd of running and flying steed, moving as one through the star speckled blackness of the fifth lesser realm, was exhilarating. The next beast in line had a large clearing around it, like the others knew to stay away. The celestial leviathan lumbered back and forth in all its glory, creating ripples in space as it swam. The greatest of all monsters, the celestial leviathan had long, burly tentacles erupting from its body. Somehow, they were less scary than the large tusks and horns sprouting from its face. As the great beast got near, the celestial tortoise moved some distance away. Well behind the celestial leviathan came a full stampede of the remaining celestial creatures, divine beings, and their progeny. To Arrow, it looked like a charging army of many partnered species going into battle. This is the wildest dream I've ever had. Maybe I'm dying, Arrow said, looking down at himself. Next came what looked like a group of giant lizards running on two legs between the more bovine looking beasts. Lastly, several shimmering fish like creatures with large egg sacs propelled themselves through space with curious motions. The passing of the celestial bestiary left Arrow feeling empty until he discovered he could move once again. Looking around, he was startled to find the celestial tortoise had somehow snuck its way behind him and was staring at him without blinking. "Why are you still here, big guy?" Arrow said. Something stirred within the twisted forest upon the celestial tortoise's shell. Oddly shaped heads and glowing eyes revealed themselves at the edge of the forest. Smaller, divine creatures and entities slowly trickled out, cautiously venturing from the safety of the shell. Some of the critters had their own uniqueness, strangeness, but the rest were subspecies of their much larger counterparts that passed by not a moment ago. Arrow was slowly surrounded by all manner of curious spiritual and divine creatures, the more fragile entities never meant to be understood. They moved with caution, discovering the new realm, and paid no attention to him. Moving towards the curious group of creatures, he swam amongst them, frolicking in their beauty. Following the little creatures toward a fruit bearing tree at the edge of the tortoise's shell, Arrow's curious nature could only think of one thing to do in this situation. Like any young boy, he wanted to catch one. At the edge of the grove, one species kept to themselves. They caught Arrow's eye by the odd way they moved. "What are these little guys? Sloths? Foxes? Sloxes?" Arrow chuckled to himself as he swam closer. The Sloxes share the combined characteristics of what old Earthers would call a fox and a sloth. Even their movements were the same: twitchy ears, a long bushy tail for balance, and gangly, grippy hands and feet made them very nimble. One moment they moved as if they were stuck in time. The next they erupted with such speed you could barely see them. As the Sloxes darted to and fro, playing between the weightlessness of space and the gravity of the celestial tortoise's back, Arrow waited beyond their gathering, preparing to strike. He was determined more than ever to catch one. Reaching out for his first target, a brown slox with gold accents, he missed entirely. Regaining his composure, Arrow tried again with a white and red one, but the result was the same. Abandoning all composure, he chased the sloxes like a wild dog, missing every single one. Some even played along with him, like it was a game. Surviving the playful swarm, Arrow found a purple and black slox who was distracted by the lowest hanging fruit. Sneaking up behind it, he hesitated. What's the worst that could happen? I'm already floating in space next to a giant turtle, Arrow giggled. Reaching out, he grasped two handfuls of the softest fur, truly surprised that the brightly colored spirit creature was actually solid. Upon feeling the softest fur in existence, the entire vibe changed. Every creature, even beyond the Sloxes, now stared directly at Arrow with malicious intent. The cute little creatures who call the forest on the shell of the celestial tortoise home appeared ready for violence. Uh-oh, Arrow whispered. Still holding handfuls of soft hair, Arrow felt as if time itself had stopped. The cuddly, soft-looking Sloxes no longer frolicked about, morphing into bigger, darker, and more intimidating versions of themselves. No longer fun and gentle, they had become dangerous and volatile. Before Arrow could even think of what to do, the Sloxes swarmed, preventing his escape. These Sloxes were in a frenzy, no longer moving like before. The tornado of fur and claws grew closer, nipping and biting Arrow until he released their friend. The moment he let go of the flailing Slox within his grasp, it was over. Multiple Sloxes grabbed him by the arms and legs, dragging him into the depths of the magical forest. The further they went, the edge of the celestial tortoise shrunk, as did the light from the new stars of the fifth lesser realm. Passed around like a Zorball, Arrow was impressed by the skill and care of the Sloxes. They took turns carrying him through the increasingly treacherous path of vines, trees, and rocks. The Slox's ability to work as a team was remarkable. Once deep enough, the light trickled back in. Once deep enough, the light trickled back in, tearing its way through the tops of the dense magical forest. What is that? Arrow thought as he passed by an erupting nest of thick vines taking the shape of a fallen statue. The caravan of Sloxes changed direction, ascending towards the center of the forest. Higher and faster they moved, swinging Arrow from tree to tree as they climbed. If this wasn't a dream, I'm not sure I would like this, Arrow cried with joy as he was flung into the air by one Slox and caught by another. Light increased to an unnaturally blinding level as Arrow approached his destination. Covering his eyes with a free hand, he was able to peek through his fingers. He realized the brightness was coming from the snow-white marble that surrounded him. When his eyes finally adjusted, Arrow was greeted by the spectacular sight of a grand, mountain-ascending city, nearly consumed by the encroaching magical forest. Where am I now? Arrow muttered as he was passed between Sloxes. Climbing beyond the roots of the mountain, the Slox's ability to traverse the dangerous terrain was yet again on display. They funneled through abandoned stone buildings whose current use was to house the strange trees that grew there. Barreling over stone bridges held up by vines and branches, up, and up they went. When the cyclone of Sloxes chittered a happy cry, Arrow knew his nauseating journey was coming to an end. Released by the many small pinching hands, he was dropped on a marble slab. Feeling the cold, smooth ground rippled by bits of dirt, Arrow searched his surrounding for any familiarity. Crawling forward, Arrow let his hands guide the way until he found the precarious edge. Looking over, Arrow could see he was brought to an exposed pedestal at the top of the mountain city. Gazing out over the ancient city and past the vibrant green forest, the back of the celestial tortoise's head was barely visible. Still on his knees, Arrow stared in wonder at the magical sight. Remembering the swarm of Sloxes, Arrow looked around to make sure the coast was clear, and he was greeted by an even mightier sight. A great tree, the mightiest tree, looming over him. The Sloxes played and climbed around the thick lower branches, keeping a close eye on Arrow. What is this place? He shouted, hoping the booming voices would answer. Before any response could be given, the gang of Sloxes jumped from their perches and once again spiraled into a swarm. Being dragged away, the diminishing view from atop the forgotten marble city was replaced by another curiosity, the increasing volume of a familiar sound. Over the noise and chaos of swarming sloxes, Arrow could make out the haunting sound of rushing water. Feeling the mist and vibrations pulsing behind him, Arrow knew he was close to something formidable. The roar of the water source was so loud it reminded him of his encounters with the nymph Wren, causing fear and panic to set in. When he was held still and given the chance to look around, Arrow's fears were reinforced. He now stared into the black circling abyss of a maelstrom contained at the top of the ancient city. Underneath the great tree, the whirlpool's depth was so enormous that the true bottom could not be seen. Before Arrow could comprehend what he was looking at, the Sloxes tossed him. Spinning around, Arrow sank into total darkness, his fear becoming too much to bear. As the last bits of light faded away, so did his consciousness.